Hi, Ruchi. Can we start?
Sure.
You can start, Ruchi. I've started the recording.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Ruchi and I'm the host for the day. And I'm from the soon to graduate class of PGPMAX. And I'm presently working for an IT company. The hot and befitting theme for our panel discussion today is Break the Bias. And we will discuss who, why, and how of bias. Now, let me ask you, do you all know the break the bias pose? Let's pose. Are you able to see me? Let's try the break the bias pose. Wonderful. So we all know that International Women's Day is observed every year on the 8th of March to celebrate historical, cultural, and political achievements of women. It supports and enables taking action against gender inequality around the world. The achievements of women and how far they have reached in the fight for their rights within the political, cultural, and social spheres are essentially celebrated around the world. Now, we have all made strides in our collective mission of gender equality, and largely we owe it to the wonderful women who walked the path before us and paved the way for us. But there's still a lot that needs to be done. A recent study of 145 nations through some glaring gender gaps. Let's start with the good news first. Iceland has come closest to equality in economic participation, opportunities for education, health and survival, and even political empowerment. And that's definitely a very good start. But there are some countries where it's illegal for women to vote. Women in several countries face harassment and violence at the polls. And in some countries, women are only considered half a witness in court cases. They're even forbidden to leave the house without their husband's permission. So a day like Women's Day strives to create awareness and aims to attain a standard of gender equality for all countries. I'm sure you will all agree that raising awareness about women's issues around the world helps elevate all women. And with that, allow me to introduce you to my distinguished and power-packed panel. This introduction follows no particular order. So let me introduce Sucharita first. Sucharita, please wave at the audience.
Hi, everybody.
Sucharita believes in setting the bar high for herself, continually upgrading her skills, and she believes that the power to jump across the bar comes to her with her passion for excellence. She is driven by purpose of striving for excellence. Sucharita focuses on delivering business critical programs and projects in building a strong organization. She has been associated with EA for over 16 years, currently working as Director, People Practices for India and Australia. She is highly passionate about driving programs related to talent development and has been a strong advocate for diversity, inclusion, and equality in her organization. She holds MPhil in psychology from the University of Delhi, and she's ISB PGPMAX Alum of the year 2019. Sucharita is currently settled in Hyderabad with a spouse and 2 teenage kids. That's a handful. She loves to travel, is professionally trained photographer, and now is focused on getting professionally trained as an artist in Hyderabad. Oh my God, that's a list of achievements. Shikha, please wave at the audience.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Welcome to this session.
Shikha is passionate about garnering knowledge and is an optimist to the core. She believes in balancing traditional with modern. We all have to learn a little bit more about that from you. She is a PGPMAX alum of the founding class of 2011. She is the country managing director at Vistara Group, heading India and Mauritius. She has 21 years of experience in financial services. She's also the founding class of EFPM, so a true blue ISBN. Her interests outside of work include Bharatnatyam. She has pursued Bharatnatyam for 12 years, and that's some commitment to this art. Her 19-year-old daughter is in med school, and she also loves Indian music. Wonderful. Welcome, Shikha, and now I will introduce Rajni. She is 2014 PGPMAX alum. Rajni, please wave at the audience. She's Rajni.
Can you hear me? Hi,
yes,
everyone.
now we can. All right, so Rajni is 2014 PGPMAX alum. She is an IT leader with more than 26 years in the industry, playing a variety of roles, primarily focusing on building products, platforms using cutting edge technologies, both as a senior leader in a large corporate and also a hands-on CEO and a few tech-based platform startups, and very passionate about building products, platforms using latest technologies. So welcome, Rajni. All right, so my first question is to the entire panel. Please share with us what Women's Day means to you and why should it be celebrated? And I'm sure this question will spark an interesting debate about why dedicate only a day to celebrate the achievements of women. So let's start with you, Shikha.
Sure. So I don't want to question what is there. We get a day when we acknowledge and honor women, and therefore that's always welcome. For me, Women's Day is about acknowledging and honoring all of we've coexisted for as long as the world is there. It is about acknowledging and honoring our women, and at the same time recognizing that there is work to be done in terms of creating equal opportunities and enabling full expression of who we are as individuals. It is true that there is work to be done, while men have always had equal rights on that front. Women have been a bit disadvantaged in terms of the way our society was, the way the work evolved along with society. That's the small piece from me.
Super. Let's hear your thoughts, Sucharita.
Well, I agree that we should surely be celebrating Women's Day. And for me, what I feel about Women's Day is that it should be celebrated every day. The reason being is it comes from an internal viewpoint. I personally never felt the need to set aside a day to celebrate being a woman. I have this mindset because I grew up seeing myself as an individual who could do anything and achieve anything if I had my mind. As part of growing up days, I never felt I could not be in par with my childhood friends, whether it was playing cricket with my brother and his friends, learning to climb walls, or riding a geared bike when I was 16. Thankfully, my parents were very supportive, and I equally excelled in cooking, sewing, or taking charge of my home when my mom traveled. So I'm not too fond of the feeling of being discriminated. And hence, to beat this feeling every day is a Women's Day for me. I like to celebrate myself as an individual, enjoying every wake of life, every day, every minute. So this is my viewpoint on Women's Day.
Super. More power to you, Sucharita. Rajni, let's hear from you. How do you feel about Women's Day and celebrating it?
Very nice to hear from other panel members. So for me, see, if you look at it, Women's Day started in 1908. So it was a labor movement which was started by 15,000 women marching in New York, asking for better pay, and short working hours and right to vote, which had started long back. And after 100 years, we are still talking about the same thing, better pay, short working hours and everything. So for me, it's more of reiterating, re-emphasizing. We have picked a day to reiterate, re-emphasize, but it should be throughout, every action, everything that you do, right? Women don't lack competency, and it's not tokenism either. It is just about equal opportunity. And women are denied for multiple things. So it's just that, you have to come out and start speaking about it and not celebrate specifically a Women Day. If somebody says it's to talk about the challenges that you're facing as a checkpoint, be it. But I think every day we have to go back and reiterate, which started in 1908 and still we are in 2022 and still talking about the same set of problems, addressing only to a certain percentage of the segment. So that is something a long way to go forward.
Right. So since the topic of the day is bias, please share with our audience what kind of biases have you experienced or witnessed at your workplace and how did you respond to them? Let's start with you, Rajni, this time.
Yeah, so this is something because I think, Shika and Suchitra would share the corporate side, but I'm from the startup world. So this is something very close to me and I would really want to speak out about it. So I'm the first generation entrepreneur in my family and I don't have any backing. So when you start an entrepreneur journey, it is something that you're very passionate about and you're very enthusiastic. You have zeal to do everything out over there. So you save your money, you start your seed funding, you get the product, you do the MVP, you do the market validation. But I'm not kidding, when you go out into the market, when you start facing the VCs out over there, how many VCs have actually funded a women? And I've attended multiple sessions, I've spoken to multiple VCs. And I did talk to more, when I interact with them, I do ask one question: how many women entrepreneurs did you fund? 95% of them said no. So why only 5%? That too, if an organization mandates them to fund a women-oriented startup, that's when they think about it. Anywhere that you go out over there, why should women be segregated separately? Either it's a startup or corporate. And why should a VC, when a VC is trying to look at a product, if you look at the analytics of the products which are being launched by women, the ROI is much, much better what men have started. And you go and question them, then you have multiple biases out over there. So those are something which are very, very hard. So sometimes you're being asked, are you the only women founder? Do you don't have a male founder on your team? Why should somebody be there when you're able to accomplish which other people are able to do it? So you do have multiple biases, and I'm not kidding. The other factor is when you do your company valuation, it is actually looked in a negative way when a woman is on the board. That is not how it is supposed to be. That is absolutely not how it is looked. It should be looked upon across all the people in the VC world. That was very, very, very hard to me. So it is something that we have to be, very resilient about all the issues that you're coming across and move forward. But on the other side of the thing, right, when biases come across, it is not, don't pull yourself down, because you have, I would admire, where I am today, because it could be because of my parents, my family, my spouse, my kid, everybody as an ecosystem made me where I am today. And I have to acknowledge where we have started in 19th century and where we are right now. So that we have to acknowledge. But there's a long, game in front of us, and we have to play smartly. So that's something that I think, build your resilience, be smart. And I'm not saying we are not smart, but we have to be smart enough to understand how to, counter the questions which the VC world or anybody is questioning you, and have your metrics out in front of you, how women entrepreneurs are actually conquering some of the products out over there. And I can, with great, with great confidence, I can tell all the, ISB alums and others on the call, saying that there's nothing that a woman can't do if you want to be an entrepreneur. Don't bias yourself saying that you can do only sales or marketing or anything. I'm a pure tech person, and all the technology is held by me. So don't. So there are multiple things that you can do it. It's just the conviction that you need to have and move forward. So that's something from my side.
Fantastic and very inspiring. So Charita, your views.
Okay, so like Rajni, I would like to add a personal experience which dates back when I started my career. I was working in my early stages of my career. I was associated with this company. When I said that I would be expecting my first kid, I was being proactive because I just wanted to make sure that the company is prepared when I go on a maternity leave. But it did not work that way. I could see a kind of negativity around the information that I had shared, wherein there was a discrimination, and it was made sure that the situations were created for me to quit the job. The reason given by my top manager at that time was that we are a small company and we can't afford to support maternity leave. And that really stuck to my mind. And I decided that I'm not going to give up because I know that is a basic right as an employee. And I continue to be there, which had an impact on my mental and physical well-being. There were two things I could have done. I could have quit and looked for a new job later on, or I continued, and I decided to continue. The reason being is I wanted to set the expectations in the organization that the other women employees, at that time we were growing, that they do not go through the same process again. It was difficult then, but I'm glad that I really stayed back, because I did have other couple of women employees who went through the same situation. And they asked me, hey, by the way, is the maternity leave paid? And I had to tell them, like, this is a statutory benefit and we have to adhere to it. It doesn't surprise me. Like, now today I work for this multinational company, and obviously multinational companies have all these robust processes and everything, but we do have some women who still continue to ask that question after, like, this happened like some 16 years back, and I still have employees still asking me, hey, by the way, is like, what's our maternity policy? And I have to tell them, like, this, we are working in a company which is multinational, and it is like very strong from a culture and everything, and you should not be asking these kind of questions. But I think somewhere for women, those things still happen. I'm not saying. So that is an incident which really continues to stay in my mind. I made sure that those kind of behaviors or the kind of patterns or the thought processes were never part of the culture of the organization that I've been working with. So that's my story.
Wow, fantastic. Shikha, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so see, we started work many, many years back. At that point in time, work environment, society was very different. And those journeys were fraught with many more biases than we see today. Typically, where I have seen biases and faced them as well has been, I think at entry level and mid level, we are not doing bad now. When it comes to the CXO level roles, or when it comes to the roles, as the roles become fewer, and as that fight for those roles becomes more intense, the competition becomes more intense, that's where you face biases that are very complex in the way they are. You can't even sometimes figure out whether it is meritocracy or it is a bias. And then that whole movement into finally a CEO role from a CXO is always fraught with, at least I feel it is always fraught with biases. There are, but then of course, I also remain very grateful for the men and women both who supported that journey from a CFO to a larger CFO, from a larger CFO to the CEO. So there were people who supported that journey as well, and therefore I acknowledge that as well. But it is true that those journeys are hard, and you have to really prove yourself much more than men have to prove themselves. The second thing is that our failures are looked at much more closely than failures of men are. They are just noticed much more in terms of the way businesses are structured. And then there are, of course, personal stories that I guess everyone here has, all of us have. My CFO stint, my last CFO stint was with an very large industrial house of the country, which has very strong CFOs. So you have to also sometimes fight for the person that you want to be. You don't have to be the fight for not being like men. I mean, you want to be the person that you are, and you don't for right on that CXO seat, you don't have to be like men. There are fortunately many people who support that as well. So I was very fortunate. I had a lot of support from my CEO for being who I was. But then there is a whole ecosystem that keeps questioning all the time. So you have to be a strong performer all the time, and the right is more difficult compared to the right of men. That is true.
I feel you. I totally do. Okay, so Charita, this one's for you. Like even Shikha mentioned, we see fewer women on top. Now, I want to know whether it's the confidence gaps that we feel and we ourselves step down, or is it the pressure of expectations that are placed on us women? Or do we just get lesser growth opportunities? And in your opinion, why do you think there's such underrepresentation of women in leadership roles?
Yeah, this is like definitely a very important topic. And it is essential I would like to really acknowledge it by saying that, yes, women are underrepresented in the organization. And there are I also believe that there are ways which all of us can overcome at all levels, whether it is at individual or at organizational level. So the landscape is changing, and it would not be like, it's not an overnight change which would help us to work together towards it. So when I'm thinking about my experience, quoting from my experience, I would say that when I started my career, the percentage of women in the leadership roles was very less. In fact, it was zero. There was no representation in the top leadership roles. And some of the reasons, while reflecting then, it was more about the reasons like managing home still continues to be the core responsibility, and it lies with the women even today. Even though we are moving much ahead, it's funny, but in spite of having a good support system at home, I sometimes have to do the meal planning for the day, along with all the execution I have to do for my office meetings. I feel this would change with my kids when they join the workforce, and my husband is still navigating the change management process for sure. Then when it comes to the support system, of like whether it is managing younger children, what are the options that women have with regard to daycare, family support, health situations, or what are the flexible work opportunities which are being offered by the organization, how to what extent women are able to prioritize their learning apart from managing or juggling between additional responsibilities. So I feel like these are some of the reasons for women sometimes like to take a break, for a career break. And when they're ready to bounce back, there is always a feeling of not feeling confident after a break. It is quite normal for anybody to feel that way. So it is, so for some time giving up the journey, and it's important that how do we take it forward? Some give it up, some take it forward. I would share like, my advice, like if we have to really think about how we are building a strong foundation for a good representation, my advice to most of the women and their families would be to have a candid conversation on setting the right expectations, communicating the expectations. It is great to help in terms of investing, in terms of help that we would require, organizing, splitting the family responsibilities, and not to try to fit the expectations of a superwoman. Investing in a home care system like, a daycare person or a cook or whatever, or even having those expectations with your other half to shoulder the responsibilities. Never fall into the trap of being judged. Communication is the key, both at personal and at professional levels. It is crucial to be confidently set the expectations with your manager or the company that you're working with. You can be only helped when we all speak up. And I'm sure all the companies have excellent practices. And I can see like there's a lot of investment by the companies to support all the accommodation requests. There is also a need for women to continue in the investment of learning. This helps them to make sure that they are able to keeping pace with the changes in the industry. And one important aspect is having an active career development. It is important that women have like a very active career development goals as an ongoing basis, work with their managers on their interest and career aspirations, putting their hands to take up stretch opportunities, etc. So in all these things, I would also call out that it is not women who have to take this journey alone. So do all the men and all the allies that we have both at work and at home. When I'm talking about all these sounds very easy, but I'm speaking from experience as to how we navigated to create this positive representation of women in our organization. First of all, as a leadership team, we all acknowledged the fact and identified the reasons and built a solid plan. The core goals when we started, which was like 3 or 4 years back, was more in terms of how do we bridge the gender gap? What are the retention strategies, whether it is career development, training and development, etc. How do we make sure that women are representing in the various leadership roles, whether it is at a junior leadership role, mid or senior, by having a structured roadmap? I can say with confidence that the impact was significant. Today, we have like a close, solid representation across all levels. In our supervisory roles, we grew from a single to double digit. All women levels have well-documented development plans supported by training plans. We have training plans across our organization on diversity and inclusions. All the managers are trained to lead inclusively and how they need to demonstrate the right behaviors to drive a tremendous diversity and inclusion culture at our company. And in the end, I would say that this was not possible without a strong partnership with my colleagues and the the other stakeholders. In summary, I would like to say that if we are dealing with underrepresentation, if we all unite together with a focused approach, there will be a great representation in the coming years. For this to happen, we need to make sure that we are all working towards it.
Thank you so much for these simple but really powerful and useful tips. Thanks very much. Rajni, this one's for you. Please tell us how you've surmounted challenges of creating work-life balance, if there's any such thing like work-life balance.
as everybody knows, there's nothing like a work-life balance at all. So usually I call, I mean, I just put it like anybody else, right? I put it across as methods and procedures to, to ensure that things are in place. So sometimes what happens is, this is something which I learned, thinking that every time I try to make sure things are perfect, I really get burnt out. So, but as long as I put in, I figure out, I know that the kids are going to miss the bus. I know things are going to fall apart. So when such things happen, how do I act upon it? So that's something that, over the period, I learned that this is bound to happen, because most of the things are external dependent factors. It's nothing in your hand. So at these times, how do you act on it? And what are the first and second level and third level of support system that you have? And how do you use it? And how diligently you use it? So that's something that you've got to have it on your fingertips. And I don't call it as work life balance. It is something that, a great conviction that you have at the bottom of your heart, saying that you can't let go your family, you can't let go your career, you can't let go your dreams. So how do you bring all of them into one platform? And I'm not saying balancing, but there are times where you would come across where you have to make a choice. At that time, be smart enough to use your, your auxiliary factors which are out over there, help, and be out over there. It's not, nobody can say you are failing at career, you're failing at with family, you're failing at making sure your dream becomes successful. So nobody can say that if you have a conviction saying that you're doing it right. So that's, in short, that's how I feel about it.
Fantastic. Shikha, tell us about how important is support from home for a woman to rise in her career. Were there times when you felt overwhelmed and wanted to give up, but what kept you really going and reaching where you've reached?
Yeah, I don't even want to start on the overwhelming moments because there were so many of them. I'm sure, the day you have a parent-teacher meeting, the same day a board meeting would show up or an important meeting would show up. That's true for, I guess, all of us, that things will decide to happen at the same time. So I'll very quickly talk about my own journey, but then also stretch it to a larger support system for our women in general. So I was fortunate to have a lot of family support. My parents were very progressive. My father had a lot of ambitions and dreams for his daughters. We were never, we were always at par. The concept of inequality did not exist in our mind. Gender was never on my mind when I joined workforce. And along the way, that helped, because if gender is on other people's minds, I always thought that was their problem. It's not on my mind. And that conviction kind of, supported. I also had a lot of support from my immediate family, from my husband, my daughter. I went back to school along with very intense work, and they all supported the journey. One thing that I would say, like Rajni said, one thing that went well was a support infrastructure, because, and we also had, a lot of us have also elder parents as we go further in our journeys. And when we are at the most intense pieces of our journey, that's the time when kids are taking those competitive exams, parents are getting older. So you have elder care, you have kids who are fighting for those few seats in a country like ours, and all of those battles going on together. And you are in roles which are intense, where you want that equal opportunity, and you have to be better than anybody else for you to just keep moving. At these times, a support infrastructure really helped me. And then I have lived with imperfections. I've learned to live with imperfections in the infrastructure. And therefore, I've always believed in creating some excess infrastructure. I always have surplus infrastructure, so that in times when I'm needing some extra space, or when I'm needing some, when that something happens at work and the house is going crazy, there is always that surplus infrastructure to write, like we create at work, some amount of variable capacities and all of that. In addition to that, there has always been a support ecosystem outside of immediate family, in terms of siblings, and in terms of friends and families who've, extended family, who's people you can reach out to, people who encourage you. And that ecosystem is extremely precious when you run your downs, or to just think through, for people to encourage you. I've been very fortunate to have some very good friends along the way who've supported. But generally, I would say that when we look at women who drop out of work, we lost a lot of very good women, very powerful, very strong women, just because the support infrastructure wasn't enough. The childcare, like Sucharita said, childcare is not there. Childcare support system, elderly support system is not there. And that's one piece that I feel as a society we really should be thinking through, so that these choices become a bit easier, because these choices are so tough. When one spouse is doing well, and why should it be between my dreams and my children's dreams? It's very difficult choices to do, because there is nobody to take care of kids. Why should it be that I have to give up work, or I have to slow down, I can't take that role because I have elderly at home? So those choices today are very tough, because we just don't have a support infrastructure as a society, as a country. We've just not put that in place. And that is in fact in the topic that we should be looking through on days like these, that what is it that we've done in terms of just making those choices simple. And then it's each person to his own journey. I might still drop that role because I want to be there for my kid, but then at least there is an enabler. At least I don't have to. It's my choice, end of the day. So I think that's an important piece of support that I feel is work which is undone. A lot of women cannot take those roles because they just cannot. The support is just not there.
All right. Also, Shikha, it's rather surprising that only 15%, 15 to 16% of total ISB PGPMAX students are women. I'm certain there are many women out there who wish to take the plunge, but are hesitant. Support system, will I be able to, won't I be able to? What would you like to tell these women who are oscillating between whether to enroll, give it a miss? So your message to our fence sitters.
See, taking up a whole a very intense study program, along with a very intense work and a home, is not the easiest of things to be doing. And I guess that is one reason that we have a smaller representation. But I would urge all women to think about the whole, if we just keep upscaling ourselves, then we really, that's one defense for us. That's one way, our way of dealing with the biases, that we are so skilled and we are so good that there is no doubt that we deserve that role. Because we can keep talking about mental models, we can keep talking about how the world should be, it should be bias free, but it isn't. And it is true that at every journey there are biases that come into play, as there are men and women who come to your support. So I would say that these are always difficult tracks, but if we can walk them, and if we can just keep ourselves away from overwhelm, then they are worthwhile journeys, because you're upskilling yourself then, and you're just making sure that you're so good that there is no that you win the battles of choice when it comes to those roles.
Wonderful. All right. Now this one is for everyone. I'd like all of you to tell us what habits make you so successful, and if there's one success mantra that you'd like all of us to, know, what would that be? Let's start with you, Shikha.
So I have only one mantra, which is live your truth. And that means that sometimes when I don't have the courage to take position on a bias, I let it go. I acknowledge that I don't want to shake the harmony at this point in time. And therefore, I would say that if we can be conscious about the choices that we are making and live our truth, sometimes we will take strong positions where we are the only ones. Sometimes we will let some battles go because they are not worthy. Sometimes we will let some battles go just because we don't have the courage to fight them. And sometimes we will seek support for those battles. So if we can understand and not be pulled into every battle and just live our truth, then there is harmony inside of us, and that itself is the biggest it's the fundament that itself throws up a lot of courage to do the right things.
Sucharita, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Shikha, and I think I would add some things like take every day as a new day, enjoy the journey. There's nothing like a perfect day or a perfect situation because there's so much of uncertainty. I don't know whether I'm maturing or I used to think very differently when I was younger, but today I feel like it's just a journey, enjoy it, whether it is chaos or perfect day, whatever, life is short.
Wonderful. And in short, it indeed is. Rajni, tips from you, please.
So I think the pandemic has taught everybody being resilient. So for me, I mean, my journey was not at all easy, to be frank. It's been 8 years right now. And pandemic pretty much made my business drop down to zero. So we had to manage the team and name it. We have gone through many challenges, including the death in the family. So family and our employees, name it. We have dealt with everything. So one factor which pandemic taught us is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Doesn't matter what happens. So build resilience, and on top of it, to build resilience, right, one need to have a strong conviction that you're going to make it happen. Beat anything out over there. So that conviction needs to be backed with resilience. If you drop your resilience at any point of time, then it really questions your conviction right from day one. So just build resilience and have a greater conviction in whatever you think about. That's in short from me, Ruchi.
Wonderful, wonderful, Rajni. Now, do we have time, Smriti, for question and answers? Do we open this out, for our audience?
Yes, so we can, Ruchi.
Super, super. So members of the audience, any questions that you have, write the name of the person you're posing the question to and just type in your question. So the chat box is available for anyone to ask any question to any of our panelists. So we have some interesting messages. Hard reality, but kudos to you, Rajni. Thanks for the motivation.
I think there are two questions over here, Ruchi. One of them is for Shika.
I'm unable to see them.
Okay, let me read it.
Okay, sure.
This is for you. What was your strategy to fight the buyers while you were going under the ladder? Going up the ladder, sorry.
Who is the question for, Smriti?
I think this is for you, Shika. What was your strategy to fight the buyers while you were going up the ladder?
Yeah. So to be honest, the only mantra that I have is live your truth. And my strategy, in a way, was to always, rather than question the buyers, I believe in productive action. So I will not spend hours in thinking why you're being biased. I'd rather go and do that extra work. And I've always focused a lot on my development, whether it is learning or it is my performance. So I've always focused a lot on that, and I've not engaged in unproductive actions like why is a bias there, and that has helped because then people do notice your performance, and you normally have some support. And I've always stood for my truth. So there have been times when there has been a lot of pressure to change the approach, or just be more strong personality like men are, but I've not given in. Those were times when I stood against the whole world. So as long as you're living your truth, and as long as you're fundamentally putting meritocracy as your fundamental value, which means that you will always only hold meritocracy as the value, and that's the value that you will apply to everyone around. I think things open up and kind of things make their way. I'm not sure that you can really think through the whole battle beforehand. It just evolves along the way, and you go with the fundamental principles of who you are and live your truth.
Great. Now, I was looking for questions in the wrong place. So I was looking in the chat box. Now I'm in the question and answer session, and we have Akanksha wanting to know, how did you manage ISB, PGPMAX, job, husband, family, kids, home, etc. through these 15 months? I do not know who this question is for, but anybody who wants to take this question can. So
I can start.
Sure.
I would say that the journey at ISB PGPMAX is interesting. For me personally, it was definitely, yes, juggling between a lot of things, not just about going to the campus, but also office travels, kids and everything. I guess when we have, as individuals, when we have decided and invested on a career and we want to do it, we would find a way to get that support and strength to make sure that we complete the journey. And of course, as I said, that we have to call out for help whenever things are falling or you feel that you're not able to balance. So I would say there were times when there were too many things happening. I would reset those expectations, whether it was about my work deliverables or something happening at home or how I was managing my time on the campus. So I would say that it was not easy, but it's all about how we navigate it. There's no mantra over there. It's very individual.
Wonderful. And we have Vinay asking a very interesting question. He's asking why women decide narrative for role of women. Vinay, you tell us. Well, anyway, who's your question for? Or whoever wants to. So it's not for one of you, it's for maybe all of you, whoever wants to take this one. Why do men get to decide the narratives for roles of women in society, at places of work?
Sometimes I think we let them do it. So, it's sometimes we take it as a defined thing. We don't. We think that they are meant to do it. So we let them do it. So I think nothing is set in stone out over there. The surroundings, the environment, the culture, everything was conducive for them to put it across. But I think it's high time where we have to take that into our control and start moving forward. So
See, also, it may not be it's not always about roles being, it's not always about housework being divided equally and all of that stuff, right? It is about whether somebody is stifling who you wish to be. It is as simple as that, every individual has a right to optimize their expression, and therefore there is no narrative really, whether it comes from men or from women, as long as nobody should decide that you're not good enough to live your full potential or optimization of your expression because you're a woman. It's as simple as that.
Wonderful. So we have an anonymous attendee posing a question for Rajni. Being a woman in tech and closer to technology and uncertainty in business. Oh God, the question moved ahead. 1 second. Uncertainty in business, also having competitors in the same business like yours, what motivates you to stand out?
So, see, one thing is when you pick a problem, right, there's always a competition. I mean, it's not that you should never think the competition will not be there. It's always there. It's there. It's right in front of you. So you got to prepare your, the way you want to approach the problem. So India market is huge. It's a 1.3 billion population. So when you launch a product, there's always a certain part of it that you can conquer. So name any products out over there. It's very difficult to create a monopoly. So when you come up with your ideation and when you're very close to the technology, build your frameworks, build your methodologies in such a way so that it is more agile and it can adapt to the changes which are happening in the market. So that will get you going. A simple example is when we started the first project and during pandemic, it was at ground zero. It actually gave birth to another startup, which is doing amazing right now. So that is something that you got to have a far-sighted thought, not just looking at what you have today, but what you want to do it in the future also. So in the technology space, be futuristic, start looking at how you can, deploy it much faster, be more agile, and look at the reusability of your components.
Thank you, Rajni. Ashish writes, the government of India promulgated a new companies law in August of 2013, which for the first time made it mandatory for certain categories of companies to appoint at least one woman on its board of directors. On the flip side, what is the panel's opinion on reservation/quota system as the reverse of meritocracy? Do you agree with this law?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
So Ashish, that law had a lot of thinking, and the hypothesis and premise was that they wanted to support, as far as the government is concerned, they really wanted to support women on board because they were just not there. If you looked at corporate India, you could literally count them on your fingers. What we have seen is now a lot of new talent entering the boardrooms, and these are women who are very good. I mean, in that sense, there is a corporate India there is a board that has the sense to not just go on reservation and evaluate meritocracy. So in that sense, I would say this is hardly a reservation. All that they're telling you is get one woman on your board and you are, at least 8, 9, 10 of you. And that pool, what happens is that pool then, only then the pool becomes available, right? If you don't give them an opportunity, the pool doesn't become available. So I'm all for meritocracy, but this was because there was a dire absence of women on the boards.
And you can have these women on the basis of merit too. It's
Absolutely. In
who's
fact,
asked you?
Yeah, so it has in fact created a great pool, and I think they also allowed you to, while you were looking for a female independent director, for a long time you were allowed to also, I mean, they gave you that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. As Shika rightly said, and the thought process, I mean, you can start seeing, women on board having a different perspective for, during some of the decisions which are made out over there. So that is being acknowledged across. So I think that's really coming up right now. And there's a great pool which is getting built over there.
Also, the structures of our businesses was another piece, because India has a lot of family-owned businesses.
Absolutely.
And therefore, because there were a lot of family-owned businesses, this forced them to look outside.
Super. So when I ask another question, it has been seen women seeking equal rights with men. Is not this the setting wrong narrative where we wish to put apple and potato in the same box? It is more important that women should have freedom to decide the role and narrative themselves rather than going for vague narrative and demand, seeking reservation, etc. Who wants to take this one?
No one is asking for reservations.
Absolutely not.
Nobody. It is, people are just saying, enable us to be able to get that role, enable us to be able to be financially independent. And there is a strata of society where we all know, I mean, these are conversations that we are having at a very different strata. There is a strata of society where being financially independent is, and not being abused, is the biggest battle. So it is really not about vague narratives. It is true that we need that base work and infrastructure and support for financial independence, and leave aside optimization of expression and maximization of expression.
And also what happens is at the bottom of pyramid, right? People don't put in, I'm not saying an extra effort, because sometimes, for a girl to come out and do something, there's need a little bit of push out over there. So these frameworks are some of the mandatory things, right? That nudge is needed from an overall ecosystem as well. So if you look at the government schools, there are few schools after pandemic, surprisingly, the women intake is 80%, which is quite surprising. What happened to boys? They're going to private schools, or what is happening over there? That's still under scrutiny right now. But 80% of the girls are coming out. So there's a strong reason out over there. So, and that nudge, a small, push is needed out over there to ensure they come out and start doing things. So you flag it as reservation or whatever it is. We never ask for that. It is the overall ecosystem where we want to make it conducive so that when the kid is, actually born, and if they're barred with so many issues out over there, at least these, few nudges would help them come out and, do what they want to do.
Completely agree. I guess it's also important that while we are doing all these things, there's a reminder to everybody across the society that these things are important and everybody needs to be represented. And it's all about creating a fair and a good society for all of us to thrive.
Absolutely.
Deepa's asking this question to you, Shikha. Despite the support, many a times we as women feel that we are fighting the lone battle. How to overcome emotional downtimes?
First of all, what works for me is that, why am I not my best company? I ask that question a lot of times. So nurture your own company. It is as you move up the roles, it does get lonelier. That is true. One way to deal with it is to have a support system outside of your work, which kind of gives you the energy. Your friends, your extended family. Sometimes you may not have full understanding. The other pieces that people outside of your workforce do not completely understand the context, but they are there to, at least if you reach out, they are there to give you that emotional support. The other piece that works for me is having a passion or hobby or an interest outside of work, because then it kind of just cuts that whole struggle out, and you're into a different space, and that energizes you a lot, and then you go back. End of day, everybody is not fortunate to have a lot of company as they progress. And therefore, nurturing and relishing and recognizing that we are good company for ourselves is equally important.
Wonderful suggestion. Now, Rachna wants to know if any of you have any advice for her for managing your own finances. Lots of working women don't know how to file their own returns or think of investments. I did realize it late, but better late than never. Any advice for the younger generation out there?
I think, right in school itself, I mean, now there's a curriculum mandating some of the accounting classes out over there. So I think holistically things are moving in the right direction. But one advice is, when we start, this is something I think some of the fintech companies started looking at it. When a woman starts using a credit card or cash, so how they, actually validate the expenses, right? That's nothing audited so far. The women don't keep track of it, or for whatever reason. So there are multiple mechanisms which are coming out over there, just to remind, saying that these are the set of, let's say, 5,000 is spent for this one, 10,000 is spent for this one, 3,000 is spent for this one. So holistically, they would want to start sending messages and SMSs for that. The reason behind it is, because we do spend, but we don't have a thought process of categorizing it and trying to understand. So that needs to be started at a ground level, be it at the school starting the accounting classes, be at the fintech companies, trying to understand your patterns of how you're spending and how to categorize them and make it habituated. And also for women, right? When we talk about the financial independence, it's not just getting a job, right? It's more about managing your finances as well. So unless and until we know, it's not about just spending. How smartly you spend, how smartly you start analyzing your spending, and how smartly you do taxing is very, very important. And that's being taught in schools, and in future, I'm pretty sure the girls are going to pick it up much faster.
Great.
Ruchi, there's a question.
I know, I saw
also
for the modest moderator, Priya is asking me this question. Corporates have a good amount of governance for D&I. I'm not sure what that means though.
Diversity and inclusion.
Oh, D&I. Okay, D&I. Measures to thrash biases in terms of startups. The journey for inclusion is long and hard. Of course it is. How have you stood strong for yourself and others as role models? And what have you learned from moments of weakness? So I have learned not to back down. I've learned, how to stand up for my own self with conviction and create, supporters for the mission that I'm on. And often, I've also realized the importance of just waiting a tad bit before I launch a full-blown mission, but having confidence and conviction in what I'm saying, and then, getting other people to support me in my endeavor, whichever that has been in different stages and phases of my life. Anyone else would like to add?
Why not messages from the women out there, or the participants out there, of what is it that works for you? What are your mantras? And
what are my mantras? Oh God, today has been my day of learning.
Yeah.
My mantras I've jotted down. Let me read out what I've learned today. So the useful tips from the panelists today that I'm carrying back home are, don't be hard on yourself. And we women are great at being hard at, and setting high standards for ourselves, and then feeling absolutely worthless when we don't meet these very, very high benchmarks that we set for ourselves. Create a support system. Surplus infrastructure is great, and use it generously when the need, arrives, and continue to upskill. I think that's a big one. And my enrollment is in PGPMAX of this year is a testament to that. Choose your battles wisely. Yeah, don't get head on in every battle. Not everything is worth your time and attention. And there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Build resilience. So besides the various mantras that I had, I think these are going to be my mantras going forward and my key learnings from today.
Awesome.
An anonymous attendee is asking, how do you go about finding good mentors to help you in your journey to highest levels of the boardroom? And this is going to be our last question. We are running out of time. Aren't we, Smriti?
Yeah, this will be our last question.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick wrap up after this. So whoever wants to take this question, how do you go about finding good mentors?
You want to do that, take that, Sucharita? So for boardroom, just in 10 seconds, for boardroom coaching, there are professional coaches available. A lot of organizations enable. In fact, there is very serious coaching that happens at the level of senior talent, senior leadership talent pipeline, where you have professional coaches available these days. You also have coaches at all prices. If you are not, if that doesn't work, then you can really reach out to a group of, to anybody in your circle. And people are much more aware these days to take mentees and walk them through.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one thing which I learned from my PGP group as well. So within our, alums, itself, there are many of them who are amazing. So you can actually find your mentors across. So the mentors, one can be a personal mentor, one can be a professional mentor. So that's something which always helped me out. So I separate both the things in such a way so that I understand how to balance it out. So you can find your mentors across your ISB alums. That's a great group whom you can bet on.
Absolutely agree with both of you. And I feel having a mentor in our career across at whatever stage we are in, it's really good. And PGPMAX definitely, as Rajni and Shikha said, we really have like a huge choice to find our mentors, and we should just leverage that and take it forward.
Wonderful. So great. In conclusion, I have to thank the panel members for such a riveting and engaging session. It's been my delight and my pleasure to be interacting with you and learning about your journeys. I'm sure that the insights provided by you will be useful for everyone who's listened in today. I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to meet with all you wonderful women. Your stories are truly remarkable and inspiring, and continue to rock and stay amazing. And a big thank you to the admissions team at ISB for putting the event together. And a big thank you once again to the fantastic ladies that I had the privilege to have a conversation and moderate the event for. The chat was unfiltered and this was an open exchange, and a lot of what you said personally resonated with me, and I'm walking away truly enriched. I wish you continued success and may you continue to inspire and lead the way. Thank you so much, and you have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
everybody.
everyone for giving us your time. Thank you, Ruchi. Thank you, the PGPMAX team. And thank you, the fellow panelists, for the great learnings.
And thank you, audience, for your wonderful questions.
Yes,
and
thank you, participants. Yes.
And sharing your Saturday evening with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Good night, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.